So XavierFox, in the fandom, I run track days for people interested in cars who want to take their cars out on track. Done quite a bit of stuff previously for charity, and I've been in the fandom since 2018.
And what got you started in the furry fandom in the first place?
I was actually on a driving holiday, and someone suggested doing a fancy dress day where we dress up as various characters, and I happened to have Fox on my number plate, so I decided to dress up as a giant fox. So off I went to Google, had a little look around for fox suits, and hey presto, guess what I found? There's a thing called the Furry Fandom where you can get a really nice quality suit, not some £20 eBay special, and it all led from there basically.
And your persona is red and white. Is there any particular reason as to why?
There is, yes. So my business, which is a special needs transport company, we picked a bright colour scheme so we're easily identifiable, and our company colours, all the drivers wear a bright red top as part of their uniform. So I used the business colours, which kind of fitted in with being a fox anyway. Hence the very vibrant white and red.
And how did you get started in the car scene? 'Cause I know it's a really big thing for you. It's something that I'm fascinated by. Like I go to a lot of furry events and there's like MotorFurs and stuff, and that wouldn't be my scene at all at all. So I'm always interested to see how people got interested in that side of the fandom.
Yeah, the strange thing was I got into the fandom quite late. I think I was about 43, 44 at the time. So I somehow avoided it for probably way longer than I should have done, and never came across it, which is quite strange. So I was actually into cars from quite a young age. When I'd earned a bit of money and I could afford to do it, I started doing track days and then started doing a bit of racing. And so I was already racing when I came across the fandom. So I noticed that there was an increasing interest from younger furs that were into their cars, which is why we got the idea of putting on some events, especially the track days, and basically making a safe environment. Because if you go along to a track day and you're a furry and you want to take pictures with your suit and that, the chances are you're going to be one of only one or two there out of maybe 80 to 100 people. So we had this idea of putting on a safe environment, doing 2 track days a year, and making it so that people could, come along, get their suits out at lunchtime, stand out on the grid, make group photos, and it was acceptable because instead of being a minority, we were a majority of the people there.
And it seemed to have grown and grown over time as well.
Yeah, I think we're the one actually coming up in about 4 or 5 weeks is the 12th one we've done. So if you think two a year, I think we had a slight break for COVID, but it's been about 6 years. Yeah, so I started them quite soon after I got into the fandom. We started off, I think the first one we had 12 people come who were furries, and the one we've got coming up in 4 weeks, 5 weeks is the first one that's 100% furry. So we've got about 70 drivers, which is quite a large number when you think about it. People that are willing to take their car on track. I've got 70 people booked in to drive their cars on track, come along, and also obviously some of them bring passengers and friends, and some people come to spectate. So I'm expecting to have over 100 furries attending the event, and it will be just a purely furry track day where it will just be a massive car meet, obviously with some track action going on as well.
Speaking of driving, I know you've got lots of interesting vehicles, shall we say. What is the story behind Baby Tank?
Um, Lots of years of having various different vehicles. It was finding something I hadn't done yet is probably the simplest answer. I went about 5 years before I bought it. I went and did my driving test in an armoured personnel carrier on the public highway to get the right classification on my licence so I can drive those vehicles on the road, which in the UK, strangely enough, you can do. You can actually, if it's within a certain size regulations, you can get them, number plates put on them, which is bizarre to most people in the world, but that's what we do here. And it was just a thing then in the back of my mind that, I'd really love to do that one day. And when I actually had somewhere to put it, because I rented a large barn, I went to an ex-MOD army supplier that did a lot of film work and rented their tanks out, as film props and things. And I actually bought a vehicle off of them.
Do you ever get like weird looks or strange reactions on the road when you're driving around these really cool cars?
Yeah, to be honest, yes. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said no. You do get a very strange reaction. Some of the sportier stuff, obviously, you do get stand out, and some of the classic stuff people really appreciate. But you can't really drive through villages in an 8 to 10 ton armored vehicle with a turret and a gun on the top and get some very bemused looks from people. And mobile phones come out and people video and children wave at you, and it's actually quite a nice thing because I think people appreciate that there's something different on the road.
Like how was in my head like you're going to Asda or something and just sitting in the car park with like all these regular micros or whatever, and then there's this baby tank next to you, you know?
Yeah, about 4 or 5 miles down the road, we've actually got an Asda, and I have been down there once or twice to put some diesel in it, where you have to obviously drive over all the speed bumps and through the whole car park to get to the fuel station. So you definitely get some very strange reactions when you pull up in a fuel station in an armored vehicle, yeah, driven by its tracks.
That just is it's like it's so fascinating because I was always saying if I could drive, I would drive a hearse as my daily driver just for funsies. Um, just because it looks cool, you know?
Yeah, something different, isn't it? I think that's maybe that's part of being a furry and being in the fandom is we are a bit different. Let's be honest, and it is nice to experiment with different stuff and just do different things and see what we like.
Do you see a trend in the fandom of people like having a car the same colors as their persona or like register it? Because I know you're saying you can get like Fox, and I've seen it once, only ever once have I seen a reg plate with OWO written on it. Um, do you see that quite commonly where people will reflect their personas in their vehicles?
Yeah, quite a lot. I mean, where we're doing the car event, and there are people with completely normal cars, their first car or even something sporty where they're a bit older and they've saved up a bit. I mean, I've just come back from the ring yesterday in Germany. We were doing a Nürburgring trip, and I think there was about 10 or 11 cars on that, and I'd probably say at least half of them had a private number plate that in some way referenced their first owner, which is it's definitely an increasing thing that people seem to want to do. I mean, I know you've said you've seen the OO plate, but I've actually got a Subaru with which is a Subaru P1, the model number, and the number plate is P1 UU, which kind of ties into one being a furry and also obviously the fact that it's a Japanese car. But yeah, I've seen quite a lot, with the UU plates and the OO plates, and the number of people that have WAF if they've got a dog-based character or fox. Obviously if they've got a fox-based character, it's you'd be surprised probably at a car event how common it is with all the stickers on the cars, that mark them out as being furries. People, it's nice because people aren't scared or worried about showing it. They express themselves through their vehicles with stickers, number plates, and different things, and it's definitely getting more popular.
Like over the years that I've gone to furry events, I've seen lots of stickers on cars. And I look past them like I have a few ink stickers that are like the ceiling cat, and I've given them to friends over the years. And you'd be like acting fuzzled or something, and the next thing you know, hang on, that's my persona on someone else's car. It's a bit of a weird one, you know?
Yeah, no, I get that, but it's nice though, isn't it? That people, I think furries they love stickers, don't they? Or we do rather. So it's just what we do. I don't know why we do it, but I think it's just a form of expression, really. But yeah, I see a lot of cars with furry stickers on. I think at pretty much every trip we go on, there's hardly a car that doesn't have something, or quite often, quite a lot of them, to be honest.
What's that feeling like when you go to a convention? Because I know people use the phrase poppy fur for you quite a lot. How do you feel about that?
The term doesn't bother me because I don't think it has any significant meaning. If I'm completely honest, I don't really take it too seriously. And it's difficult to explain because I don't want to blow my own trumpet. But when you run a business and you've got 400 staff and you're the boss, you are kind of in control and you're running it. So you're used to dealing with a certain level of people having to come and ask you questions and be probably a little bit important. Compared to that, just being known because you've got an interesting sonar or some interesting cars, I don't really get a lot out of it. It doesn't go to my head. I think probably is the easiest way to explain it. I've been probably a bit quieter on the social media channels for the last year or two, so I don't think that applies that much. In fact, a lot of the time, I'm actually surprised people remember who I am, to be honest, because rather than doing the general stuff and a lot of the charity stuff I used to do at the conventions, I mainly stick to more the car scene. So I think I'm a little bit more niche these days.
Have you ever had any crossover from like people from work finding your furry stuff?
Yeah, I've got in the office at work, I've got a 2 meter by 3 meter, so a 6 square meter printed image up on the wall of two touring cars with me in the fox suit standing between them. So it's it's quite difficult to not let people know about it. I think what I've always tried to do is just be open about it. I've never been ashamed of it. It's never bothered me. The fact that there's pictures up at work, it is what it is. Whether they think it's a mascot suit for work because it follows the colours or whatever people think. I have worn my suit a couple of times in the office at work, and I've had people come in that haven't seen it before and want their photo taken with it. I've never found anything other than a positive reaction, to be honest.
That's truly amazing because like especially when you look at your following, people would look at it and go, "Oh my God, he's famous in the furry fandom or he's famous in that community." But he's also my boss. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I suppose so. But it's I think if you're fairly grounded, which I'd like to think I am. Hopefully that's how I come across anyway. But I just don't make a big deal of it. It's just a part of my life, and life goes on. You either accept it or you don't accept it. And like I said, everyone at work has been very accepting. Even people that come, even when people come in for an interview, or I have people from the council whatever come in the office. The fact is, there's a 6 square meter picture with racing cars and a giant red fox on the wall. So I'm not covering anything up and I'm not hiding anything. I think you've just got to not ram it down people's throats, but just be open about who you are and what you are, really.
So going from one thing to another, in terms of photography, how did you get started into that passion?
That I think that was when I was about 40 years old, so about 10 years ago. I just decided that I needed to branch out and learn some new skills because I did a lot of car stuff, like I said, with my racing and my track days and that. And it was just a new skill I wanted to develop, but I haven't done that much photography over the last probably 3 or 4 years. Because what I found is, and I'm guessing this is a fairly common furry thing, is that once you start suiting, you tend to be in your suitor main events, not holding a camera, and mixing the two is not particularly easy.
To go back to cars for a second, because this is a question I've had in the back of my head for a hot minute. How many vehicles do you currently have? Is that like the $1 million question?
It's actually a lot less than it used to be. So about probably 3 or 4 years ago, I had 53, which seems a bit excessive, I know. I'm now down to about 25.
And what would you say are like your top five things to drive?
Oh, good. The problem is with cars is if you've got one, you love it. Especially if you take out to track days, and it's part of your hobby. But when you've got a bit of a collection, it's quite difficult because what happens is over time things change, or you forget something's great and you drive it and you really like it, or you get something new. So I find that things change quite a lot. It would be quite hard to make a top five. But at the moment, my favourite racing car I've got is a Lamborghini carbon fibre bodied GT3 race car, which they use in a lot of the worldwide and large sort of continental endurance events. That's an absolute monster to drive, as you could probably imagine, with its V10 engine. And then road wise, I'm a huge fan of the Skylines and GTRs because I have quite a history of collecting and owning JDM cars. So, like I said earlier on in the chat, we've just come back from the Nürburgring yesterday with a 4 day trip organised by Kurt and other Fur, which was a great trip. And yeah, I took my R35 GTR Track Edition on that, which was just epic because it's basically a GT car you can cruise along in comfort for excessive mileage. I think with the Eurotunnel, it took us about 7 hours to get back. But then when you get there, it's also huge fun to throw around. It's not just a one-trick pony that can only do long drives. But yeah, in order to actually work out a ranking of a top five, I'd probably have to sit down with a pen and pencil and try and work it in my head because that's actually quite a difficult question. Yeah, I think there's some people just take to the driving element. I think I don't know whether it's a sense of freedom or being in control of a machine, especially with a sports car when you're on a track. The fact that it's competitive. Even if you don't intend to be. The fact that especially when we go racing, you're trying to beat other people, you're trying to achieve a certain lap time. or beat the best performance you've ever done, or learn a new track. It's not just getting from A to B. There's just so much more to it that it's difficult to explain. And I think a lot of people find cars rewarding, you know, because they get their first car and they might tune it up, or then they might move on to something else, and you always feel like you're moving forwards, if that makes sense. Because you don't, not many people get the same car and will keep it exactly it is for say 20 years. You know, they'll want something better, or they'll move on, or they'll tune it up so it's a bit faster, or and then they want to go to a track day and test it out, and then obviously you come into contact with other people that have the same interests, which is why I think the car fur group works really well, because we get together, like I was saying, at Donington in, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks, that there's going to be over 100 people there, that we're not just getting together because we're furries, we're getting together because we're car people as well. So you haven't just got one thing in common, but you've actually got overlapping interests, so you've got more in common with each other, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does, and it's something that I look at like online and I go, that's so cool. Like it's so niche, but it's also so broad at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you're welcome to come along if you ever want to come and see what it's about. What I do with the track days is, I rent the track privately for the day, so no one else is allowed to go. And then it's obviously people will pay to take their car on track, which covers the cost of doing the day. But it's always completely free and open. If anyone wants to come and spectate or watch or come to a car meet, effectively, which it is a furry event, and there's no issues with wandering around all day in your suit if you want to, or doing pictures, or as long as you're not in the middle of the racetrack while people are going past 100 mile an hour, which the organisers of the owners of the track obviously frown on somewhat. As long as people are sensible, I've always kept it to a point where there's no tickets. So anyone who's interested or wants to see what it's about, or is just curious, can come along and join in, and bring your suit and be a part of it and just have a nice day out.
It sounds like great crack, to be fair. Do you get a lot of spectators or people that attend purely for racing, or what's the mix typically like?
Originally, it started off with people just coming to bring their cars, and then what I think we started to find more and more people bringing a passenger or mentioning it to their friends, and their friends maybe not wanting to take their car out on track, but then they'd come along to watch, excuse me, or they'd come along to take photos or to spectate. And I'd say the next one, if we've got 70 cars out on track with furs, and they're not all out on track at the same time. You go on and off when you feel like it. So there'll probably only be 20 or 30 out at a time. But I would imagine you're probably going to have another at least 40 people coming as passengers or just coming to watch. So it's getting to be for what it is, it's getting to be a fair size event. I have no interest in making it really into a con or a mini con or anything like that. But I think as a 1 day event where people can just come along and have a nice day out, I just think it works really well. And as I said, it'd be nice if the number of spectators came up and more people took an interest. But I've tried to keep it as opening and welcoming as I can, where anyone can just rock up on the day and just come and see what's happening.
So you mentioned earlier on about people getting, involved in for racing and things like that. For yourself, like what was that moment like when you've beat a previous record or when you've, made an improvement on the vehicle that's worked out very well? You see that improvement working in real time.
I think it's the competitive edge. It's the satisfaction of obviously achieving something that you probably worked quite hard to do. It's when you first get a race car, it's fairly easy to go quicker, but the more experience and the more practice you get, the incremental gains reduce quite a lot. We had it in a recent Slick Series race where, when I first started with the Lamborghini, for example, we were always playing second fiddle to a guy that used to turn up with a Ferrari challenge car. And due to obviously being quite new to the Lamborghini, he'd always beat us by a bit. And over the space of, I think it was 4 race events, we got closer and closer and closer until we finally beat him. And it's just the satisfaction of actually, you can't just push a button, and you can't just throw some money at something to fix a problem. You actually have to work on yourself, on your control of the machine, and actually you're trying to. It's that sense of achievement of actually achieving something in the real world, something tangible that you've put the hard work in, and it's paid off. I think it's just a really satisfying feeling.
And what would your advice be to someone who's starting off in the racing world for the first time?
Oh God, that's a difficult one. Yeah, I mean, racing's just the problem with racing is you just have to go at a sensible level because racing can get very expensive very quickly. Without getting into too much facts and figures, even if you start to go into stuff where you're running slick tyres, which are stickier than normal tyres, if you start racing cars that use those, you can very easily do £2,000 on a set of tyres, and they might only last 3 hours. Which sounds nuts when you think about it. So it's a good job you actually get some fun out of it. Otherwise, you'd probably be crying, looking at your bank balance. But we do it because we love it. But yeah, no, it's the first thing I think I'd say is just don't expect it to be a cheap hobby. You can do an awful lot and you can have a lot of fun doing track days, doing club level events and stuff like that. But if you start to take it quite seriously, it could very quickly leave a rather big hole in your pocket.
So, Xavier, I've loved having a chat with you because this is something that's fascinating to me because I know nothing about the motor world. So I've really, really appreciated you coming on and having a chat with me. Where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter. Not very often. I've got to admit, I've kind of calmed down how much I post there, but I think it's XavierFox 19 on Twitter, which is, and I know Twitter's a little bit less fashionable now, but I haven't moved to any of the newer like Blue Sky or that because when I got into the fandom in 2018-19, I was a bit, wow, this is amazing. Look at this new fandom thing, and I steamed in. And now I've kind of settled and I'm doing the events I do and working around real life and I've pulled back a bit. So I do post some stuff online, but it's mainly Twitter. I don't really use many other platforms. I don't have a Facebook account for the Fox. I do stuff which does go on Twitter, and that's where I tend to keep people updated on the track days and things. And I also have a Telegram channel for the track days called Track Day Furs. So if people want to find me there, it's normally a case of just asking anyone who's into cars, do you know about the Track Day chat? And people are obviously welcome to come and join the Track Day chat if they want to. I'll send you a link actually to that. So if you're ever interested, or if you know anyone that might like it, they can come along and join in. And it's not a big complicated thing with loads of different versions. It's a simple chat channel and it has everything in there. For car people and also obviously for our event, so people know what's going on and when and how much and where they need to go to take part.
Fabulous. Thank you so, so much.
No, that's been great. Thanks for the chat. It's been nice to talk to you.